Thank you, and good afternoon to everyone. With me today is City Councilmember Mark Kersey, our San Diego Police Department Chief David Nisleit, and our San Diego Fire Rescue Chief Colin Stowell. I want to thank the Chiefs and Councilmember Kersey for being here today. Look, this has been a week like no other. Unprecedented situations that have been changing literally hour by hour. We know we're in unprecedented times. And though we are in these times, I want you to know that we have seen unprecedented cooperation throughout the city of San Diego. And I want to thank San Diegans for their collaboration and their compliance, and most importantly, for their compassion for one another. First, I want to talk about the stay-at-home order issued by the state of California last night. California should indeed have a uniform approach to the COVID-19 crisis. It is the best way for us to get through this together. Everyone in the city of San Diego should comply with the state directive to protect public health and to slow the speed of the virus. I want San Diegans to know that the California stay-at-home order reinforces the directives that the city of San Diego has put into place and that we put into place earlier this week. And it backs up everything that we have been saying for the last week. San Diegans should stay at home. We're going to beat this virus by staying at home. And the order requires Californians to remain at their place of residence except in very limited circumstances. It also allows for the operation of only essential businesses. The state has provided the following guidance on which essential industries can stay open. It includes things like hospital and healthcare providers, grocery stores, core government services, including public safety, construction, housing construction, banks, entities, of course, that provide food, shelter, other social services, and the necessities of life for those that are economically disadvantaged, laundromats, laundry services. Also, newspapers, television, and others to help communicate, obviously, all the things that are changing on a daily basis. I know that there are still some questions that are out there. And I know that the state is working to provide more clarity and will continue to do so in the coming days ahead. For businesses that want to see more information, please visit the state of California's COVID response website, which is covid19.california.gov. That's covid19.california.gov. Now let's talk about our local residents. During the stay-at-home order, there are still some things, of course, that San Diegans can do. You can leave the house to go buy groceries or go to the pharmacy. You can access, of course, medical care and your medical appointments. You can go to the work if it's an essential industry as outlined by the state directive. You can care for a family member. You can care for a pet, and yes, you can walk them and be outside as long as you are observing the social distancing rules. That type of walking, exercising, jogging, running is incredibly important in these times. Here's what you should not do. You should not go to work unless you are in one of those essential industries. You should not do things like visit a hospital or a nursing home or other residential care facilities, or be closer than 6 feet to another person. Again, please visit that state website for more information. You can also find a link to that website and those businesses covered on our local website page, sandiego.gov/coronavirus. Now it's really more than ever that we help one another. So I encourage everyone to call your family members if they're not here, if they're out of town. Stay connected. Call your friends to check in. Call your coworkers to check in. FaceTime, text, email. Those are the things that we can do to stay socially and emotionally connected, which is incredibly important in these difficult times. We are a community. We are San Diegans, and we're going to continue to act like it, even during these very difficult times. That's more important than ever, I think. Finally, I'd like to give a brief update on what's happening at the border. As I'm sure many of you are aware, the federal government announced limitations today on the crossing of the U.S.-Mexico border. These are the same limitations that they previously announced for the U.S.-Canada border. The Homeland Security decision limits crossings to essential travel only. San Diegoan residents and businesses, as you know, depend on a fully functioning border. No one believes that more than me. I also believe that people come first. So right now, we must put the health and safety of all people at the forefront of our decision-making. I know this decision at the national level was not taken lightly, and I commend both the Mexican and the U.S. federal governments for doing and working on this together with the best interests of all residents in mind. The new border crossing limitations go into effect at 9 p.m. tonight for the next 30 days, unless otherwise extended. I spoke on the phone this afternoon with Customs and Border Protection Director of Field Operations here in San Diego, Director Pete Flores, to talk about this decision. And he stressed to me that the critical services and commerce will continue to flow. Essential workforce, as defined by federal guidelines, will also be permitted to continue. Those traveling in a tourism or purely recreational capacity should not attempt to cross. You should stay home. He shared that his teams have already seen between a 30 to 50% decrease in passenger travel. And so most people are doing the right thing and limiting travel on their own. That's what we need to continue to stress. I particularly want to thank our federal officers for what they are doing to keep our border moving as efficiently as possible during this very challenging time. Now I'd like to introduce Councilmember Mark Kersey to share a few words, and again to all of the council members who have been continually engaged, each and every one of them united in one front and one vision, all of us working together for our city. Councilmember Kersey, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, everybody. You know, in the past, we've lived through things like SARS, the bird flu, H1N1, Ebola, and most of us did not contract any of those, and people watching obviously didn't die of them. But some people did. And it's tempting when you're watching the cable news and you're seeing the numbers tick up, or you're hearing the updates from the county on a daily basis, to think of this in terms of statistics, because that's what you're being given. But there's also a real human face to this as well, and that's why it's so important that people heed the advice being given to stay home. You know, my brother was one of those people who did die of H1N1 6 years ago, and this week has been tough because yesterday would have been his 44th birthday. He was 37 when he passed away, otherwise healthy, left behind a wife and 4 beautiful kids. And it's tempting, again, to look at this and say, well, we survived SARS and H1N1, and we'll survive this too, and we will get through this. But you don't want to be a statistic, and you don't want a family member to be a statistic. If my brother had one flaw, is that he took better care of his family than he did himself. So that year, he didn't get a flu shot. He worked too much, and he slept too little. And he didn't heed the first signs of being sick because he was kind of a workaholic. And so by the time we actually got him to the hospital, it was too late. Please don't let that be you or your family members. Stay home, stay safe, take care of yourself. And for you young people out there, I know there's been a lot of coverage on how it's primarily people over 60 who are dying of the coronavirus, but increasingly it's people under 60 who are the predominant ones who are getting hospitalized. And I'm thinking of Steve Padilla, Chula Vista City Councilman, Chair of the State Coastal Commission, who's in the ICU right now, and he's under 60. People like that who are otherwise healthy, and all of a sudden it hit them, and now they're in the hospital. So please, take care of yourselves, take care of your family. If you're not essential, as the City Council is not, please stay home, look after your family and your loved ones, and we will get through this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for sharing that very personal story that I think all San Diegans will take to heart. Next up, I'd like to invite Chief Nisleit to microphone to give his perspective. Chief.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon. As the Mayor was saying earlier, I want to thank San Diegans. Earlier in the week, we had the closures of the bars and restaurants, and we had just unbelievable compliance. We had officers out doing education. We found nothing but compliance, which tells me that San Diegans are heeding the advice of not only the governor, but our health officials, and understanding how they can help defeat this virus. So as of last night's with the government's closure, or I should say stay-at-home order, again, we're asking for compliance. My officers will be out doing education, again, asking for compliance. And I want to say thank you to San Diego, because looking at our radio calls, our calls for service, they're down 11% in this last week, which tells me that San Diegans are following the rules. They understand the importance of this. They understand the teamwork needed to defeat this virus, and they're heeding that advice. So I want to say thank you. Our officers will be out there. If you have questions, please feel free to contact them. Again, I'm asking for your cooperation, and I know I will receive it. So thank you so much. Together, all San Diegans will defeat this virus. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chief. Invite Chief Colin, Stowell, Fire Rescue Department. Chief.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. What I want to start off with is I want to assure San Diegans that the Fire Rescue Department is prepared, equipped, trained, and ready to respond to your medical emergencies, to any of your emergencies, call for services. This is a challenging time, and we have certainly prepared our folks, and they're well aware of the exposures and the need for them to provide these services to the public. In order for them to do that, though, I need to ask the community, the residents of San Diego, to help us help you. And to do that, that is heeding to these directions, the directions from the governor, from the mayor, to cease all non-essential activities. By limiting those activities out in the public, you will reduce the chances that the first responders will be needed to call for services there. It will reduce the exposure for those first responders so that they can stay healthy and continue to respond and provide the level of services that our citizens and our residents expect. So again, I ask you to fully cooperate with these directives, limit those activities so that we can stay prepared and ready. And really, we are at work to help you. And so what we're asking you is to stay at home so that we can continue to help you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chief, and to all of our first responders who are working 24/7, to all of the city essential personnel that is working for water, wastewater, picking up the trash, environmental services department. Thank you for everything that you're doing to help keep our city running and protecting our city during this very difficult time. With that, I will pause and be happy to answer any questions that any of you might have at this point.
Hi, everyone. Okay, I know you briefly touched on, Mayor, some of those essential jobs. If you could maybe just really hit home on that. I think there's still a lot of confusion. We're getting a lot of emails, calls, wondering why construction's going on outside their doors. So maybe you could just kind of touch on why certain jobs are essential.
Thank you. And again, part of the essential services that the state has designated, like home building, will continue. And that's why it was important to go to that website, covid19.ca.gov, to make sure that you are fully informed and aware of what those categories are. Make that right decision. As I mentioned earlier, this has been fluid. We're likely to see updates and changes to that, and that'll be part of the process. But part of what we really want to do is to get all of that information out to ensure that everyone's complying.
We are heading into the weekend. We've had these really detailed updates from you guys every day. What is your message to San Diegans heading into the weekend? Will we still hear from city leaders throughout the weekend?
It's to stay safe. It's to stay home. It's to do all of the things that we've been urging San Diegans to do in terms of social distancing. That is incredibly important. We can't say that enough, and we are united with our public health professionals. You've heard from everybody here. This is how we slow it down. This is how we stop the spread. This is serious business. And so all of these ordinances, these rules, these mandates are designed with one goal in mind. How are we going to help protect people? How are we going to get on the other side of this as soon as possible? And so we're asking San Diegans to do the right thing. As you've heard from, Chief Nisleit and Chief Stowell, San Diegans are. And that's why I wanted to make sure I reinforce some very positive to say thank you. Thank you for doing the right thing. We need you to continue to do that. We need you to take these mandates and precautions to help yourself, help your family, and make sure we are not spreading this.
Last question. It is comforting to hear that cooperation is up. I know everyone appreciates that, but maybe just one last question for the chief. I know you guys are focusing on education when you're out there. but could you talk a little bit about enforcement if it should come to that? Any kind of repercussions for people who just aren't taking this seriously?
Yeah, great question. And so the question is about enforcement. And so first I want to say, San Diego Police Department, I couldn't be more proud of the men and women of the San Diego Police Department, both on the sworn and civilian side. They're showing up for work every single day. Our staffing is actually up, and they're out here helping their fellow San Diegans. Again, we're talking about cooperation, and there's no doubt in my mind we're getting the cooperation because we've already been seeing it this whole week. People are heeding these mandates to stay home, to only do the essential things they need to do. And so we're using a lot of education. We're kind of telling people what it is that they need to do, what they're allowed to do, and we're getting full compliance. And I have no reason to believe that we won't continue to get that. And so that's the approach we're taking.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for anybody here today? If not, I appreciate attending today's update and briefing, and we will continue these next week as well. Thank you all. Be safe, take care of yourselves, and practice that social distancing. Thank you.